Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final podcast from SLTD Going Over Big Time in 2023. No, we're not going off air. This is just our final part of this year. And Mike and I are going to rehash the last week. We gave you our top wrestlers of the year in 2023. And so this time we are going to close off 2023 by naming our picks for match of the year. Um, I guess like if Mike had more, that's totally fine. I had like a top five rounded out, and I have some honorable mentions myself. So with that, we will go into our matches. I guess I will start like I did last week with my honorable mentions. Yeah, this gentleman's going to be on this on our list, I think, on numerous occasions. Will Ospreay, in his TNA Impact run from Bound for Glory, the match with Mike Bailey, and then subsequently the match with Josh Alexander. I just finished rewatching the match with Josh Alexander. Um, I wouldn't say it's on the level of some of the other matches Will Ospreay has had this calendar year, but very solid. Of course, you have to adapt to the way the other guy is you're facing. Josh is a little, I guess, heavier in terms of weight class. He's a more of a ground game, more of a hard hitting guy, and but nonetheless, very impressive display. Like with Omega, Osprey would be a little quicker, I think, in terms of speed, matching speed for speed. But this one was very solid, very impactful. No pun intended. Josh Alexander does this cross body through the ropes when the guy is sitting on the ring apron out on the outside of the ring. So it's when he hit that on Will, that was a really good shot. Um, but yeah, match with the Mike Bailey was of a similar at Bound for Glory was of I think a similar quality as well. Um, and to round off my honorable mentions, this is an interesting pick, but I picked the 2023 Royal Rumbles, both the men and the women. Um, Not so much as like overall like match quality because you when you have 30 people in there, it's hard to like pick out who did the best whatever.
Hmm.
But there were like little things that really stood out to me that made me go back and think, okay, that was a pretty good Royal Rumble. So I was thinking in terms of the women's Rumble, the reemergence of Asuka in her throwback character to when she was in Stardom or Japan. Um, Piper Niven getting her name back. Um, I guess the only dark spot in the women's rumble was number 30, Nia Jax at the time, making her one-off appearance during that time before I believe she was fully re-signed by the company. As for the men's rumble, I will have to say there's really almost two matches in that match. It was Gunter starting at number one and setting a record-breaking 1 hour 11 minutes time in the Rumble and basically had a second match in the Rumble itself with Cody Rhodes, who came in at number 30. Of course, Cody went on to win the Rumble, but you have to give it to Gunther, who I believe, yes, was the Intercontinental Champion at that time, still on his way to becoming the longest reigning title holder. But that men's rumble I thought was a pretty good one. Brock Lesnar did not take up too much time. He got in a good probably 12 minutes or so before being eliminated by I think it was Lashley. And then
Hmm.
I guess one of the most insane spots was Logan Paul, one of your favorite people, and Ricochet decided they wanted to replicate the Homer Simpson Simpson men family headbutt contest or but without a wearing a pot on either man's head. They
You
both
mean hi everybody, I'm here. By the way, you mean the complete opposite of what you're supposed to do in a Royal Rumble?
well in their defense, Mike, they both leapt back in the ring, but just splattering against each other. It's not like they
Uh
went
huh.
for a high risk spot outside. This was not like them doing like a suicide dive or anything, and then stupidly thinking, "Oh shit, I just eliminated myself."
I understand it.
Nobody was
Lo-
that stupid. Nobody was
See,
that stupid.
my problem is that I can't not put logic into these things. I can't. It's impossible for me to not think logically about anything, and this is included. It's a cool spot. It just is not sensical in a Royal Rumble.
Who would have thought that spot would have led to subsequent matches between those two guys, and
In August,
yeah, and then eventually leading to Logan Paul becoming the United States champion.
it only took 8 months for them to have a match after that.
Yeah, that was talk about long term storytelling.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, fortunately there were no women matches mentioned. I mean, I guess I could throw in the Diana Trinity, I guess, series of matches they had, but
Hmm.
it was not as memorable other than Diana tapping out for the first time in her TNA run.
Yeah.
Other than that, those are my honorable mentions. Did you have any honorable mentions
Uh,
before we
so
go
I
on our
have
top five?
I have multiple just
Okay.
because it was very hard to like put this list together and not make the entire list Will Ospreay matches. So I just put my favorites on the list, and at the honorable mentions that I have is same as you, Ospreay versus Bailey. Um, I also have Ospreay versus Naito in the G1. Um, Ospreay versus Marufuji at Marufuji's 25th anniversary, uh, and Ospreay versus Saber at Royal Quest 3.
Hmm.
Um, on top of that, I also have Dragunov versus Hayes from No Mercy. Um, the Intercontinental title match at WrestleMania, Triple Threat.
Hmm.
Um, Kevin Owens and Sammy versus the Usos at WrestleMania. And just to, I didn't write these down, but I figured I'll just throw them in because um, Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte at Mania this year was their best match ever, and Rhea Ripley's crowning moment. Um, and from probably a match that you haven't seen, but I recommend that you do see it is Julia versus Tam Nakano when Tam Nakano won the title off of Julia. It is one of the best women's matches all year, and I highly recommend that match to anybody. Um,
Tam Nakano.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, I believe that was at the All Star Queendom.
Hmm.
I'm just gonna confirm that to be sure. But yeah, all these matches, great matches that I um, would have loved to include on my list. But there's just so many matches that I just enjoyed way more. And a lot of these were, story related, and especially the Owens and Sammy tag title match. That was long term storytelling at its finest with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens finally like becoming friends again and putting their differences aside to become the champions. Um, but yeah, I think that um, and we talked about it with our wrestlers of the year. It was hard to find a bad Will Ospreay match pretty much the entire year. Um, and it was also hard not to just make the whole list about him. But
Yeah, we need to make a minimum of maybe just 2 to 3 matches and not just fill up
yeah.
the entire list. Otherwise, we expand the list or, you know, yeah.
But yeah, it was a good year for wrestling as a whole.
Yeah, the quality of the matches really, expanded. I would, even though I didn't put any on my top five, I would concede that WWE, like you mentioned, Kevin Owens and Sammy versus the Usos, Gunter, Drew, Sheamus, various Gunter matches throughout the year that that weren't on a pay per view, but really showed that WWE finally caught up to like putting out quality matches again.
Yeah, I don't have any WWE matches on my
But
actual
yeah,
list
but
either.
nonetheless, I think they will. I would say by the end of 2024, we might come to a point where we do have some on the top five or whatever. So I'll go into my fifth, my number five, I guess. And
Mm-hmm.
then then I'll go to you. I mentioned this last week too, in terms of around when we discussed wrestler of the year. Number five is Swerve versus Adam Page, the Texas Death Match at Full Gear. Could have could have ranked higher, but I don't know. There were so many other ones
Well,
that just delivered quality.
we
But
have the
this
same
one,
number 5.
okay,
Again,
yeah, okay.
the same number
And
5
I
again.
think and not to repeat myself from last week, but from last episode, but I
Yeah.
mean this match had like every single thing. Like it had blood, it had barbed wire, it
Mm-hmm.
had every kind of foreign object imaginable except maybe a kitchen sink. And I don't, and I can see maybe they may have had so much stuff out there we may have just missed the kitchen sink.
Uh-huh.
I mean, what really did it for me was the drinking blood spot, which was,
Yes.
obviously had to go through various approvals and
Mm-hmm.
regulations, but nonetheless, having that in there was like a first for me. I was like, not since like Shayna Baszler biting Becky Lynch randomly in 2020 and then drew some blood did I ever see anybody
The
else in a wrestling context
the difference
consume
is
another
that
person's bodily fluids.
this was done in a for storyline purposes,
Mm.
and it did. I don't want to say it made sense because that doesn't make sense in any context, but it was done for storyline purposes to prove that Hangman Adam Page will do anything to beat the shit out of Swerve.
Oh yeah, yeah. And when I mentioned like there was almost like every single thing in the match, if you substitute out the sink and put in Hangman's baby pictures or baby drawings,
And a
I mean,
cinder block.
and a cinder block as well, stapling them Swerve's forehead. I mean, I think the only thing actually missing were like those wooden skewers you use for like barbecues, and then you just
Oh
jam
yeah,
them.
yeah.
That's more of a Moxley thing. So I think they,
That's been a GCW staple /
yeah.
Moxley's been doing it recently.
But yeah, and of course, like forgive me for just kind of rushing through my analysis of the whole match, but the ending I think is the one thing that will stand out if you don't remember anything else from this. Hangman just basically getting his life choked out of him by a chain, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what an ending! Really signified the rise of Swerve. We just recently saw it in the Continental Classic with him making it to the finals of the Gold League.
Yep.
Way more believable now that he'll be a champion in 2024, at least a singles champion in 2024.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this match, and I think the only reason that I don't rank it higher is because of the interference.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, we
which
talked
was
about it
not
when,
needed,
yeah,
which was kind of the one blemish on this thing. It was like,
yeah. We talked about this numerous times. We talked about it when we reviewed Full Gear, when we talked about it a little last week. But yeah, this match, everything that happened in this match, I felt was warranted because of how personal it became. And this is how you tell a story in a match that is supposed to be personal. I don't want to, like, Swerve Strickland does the thing where he in, does a home invasion of his opponent, and then they just chain wrestle. That's not storytelling. That like that's not the time to do that. You have to have a match like this when it becomes that kind of personal story. And I thought that the match itself, despite the interference part, went along with the personal animosity and just the fact that Hangman didn't even have an entrance. He just immediately wanted to beat the shit out of Swerve.
Mm.
And that's what he did for a long time. And I don't want to say that the finish is uh I don't want to say that the finish is telegraphed by the interference because I feel like Nana probably would have gotten involved, which I think would have been passable because Nana's a manager and the guy went through a table, so I give him that. The guy hasn't wrestled in like 15 years, so um but yeah, I love this match so much, and it was just so good in solidifying Swerve if he wasn't already.
Cool. Okay, so moving on to number 4. Um, I picked Brian Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. at Wrestle Dream. Their first encounter. This was
Hmm.
supposed to have taken place a few years ago due to unforeseen circumstances or Brian not being available. So this finally happened. Two of the best technical wrestlers having for the most part, a very technical wrestling match.
Hmm.
My first time watching Zack Sabre Jr. was during the Cruiserweight Classic, and I'm watching this guy doing all these moves that I've never seen anyone else do that I didn't think it was humanly possible sometimes to execute. And yet here we are. Brian Danielson at his best while we're doing a lot of technical stuff that when he was in WWE wasn't able to do for, various reasons, but finally found an almost kindred spirit in Zack Sabre Jr. And Brian has said that he is heading into his last year as a regular competitor. So um, the way the match ended, I think, left us wanting for more. Hopefully, in next year, because as we mentioned before, Zack Sabre Jr. lost because Brian didn't need a face and got a pin. He did it with a impact move and not a like a wrestling hold, which for two guys who had built this match to be a technical wrestling clinic, and that Zack Sabre Jr. insisted that Brian Danielson was not the best technical wrestler. He couldn't beat him with a technical wrestling move. I definitely smell some future match or like a future round two. Sorry,
Yeah.
um, on the horizon. I mean, Brian's gonna be at Wrestle Kingdom 18 to face Okada in a rematch. So who knows what Danielson's going to be doing after? I mean, they may set up something for Forbidden Door next May. So
Hmm.
there's something to look forward to. But yeah, nevertheless, just my recollection of this match, very sound technical stuff, which is something I always have a taste for from
Yeah.
time to time. So that's why it's my number 4.
Yeah, so I'll have more to say about this match later. But yeah. Uh what a match. So my number 4 is I think this match probably would have been higher at some point, but there was a couple other matches that are just too good not to have above this, and um this match I think has gone under the radar recently because I don't hear a lot of people talking about it that much. But um, my number 4 is FTR versus Bullet Club Gold, 2 out of 3 falls on I believe it was the 5th episode of Collision uh, on July 5th. So yeah, this match. So they had their first encounter, which I believe was it a time limit draw? I think their first match, or I gotta look that up. I don't remember off the top, but
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I'm struggling to remember myself. In fact, I was actually thinking this match you're talking about was the time limit draw, but I could be
no,
wrong.
no, 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 no.
I could be wrong.
This is the
There was
two
a
out of three
definitive win.
falls
Yeah, you know
match.
what? Now I remember there was a definitive win because I remember Juice got the pin.
Yes.
Um,
So the story of this match kind of built it. It was this match was almost a draw because it was close to an hour. It was like 59 minutes and 25 seconds. But the first fall just happens out of nowhere, and I believe it was Bullet Club Gold gets the first fall like very quickly,
yep.
and obviously FTR is stunned after that, and they the match continues to build and build and build, and then it just goes on for like another like 20 minutes before the second fall happens, and the obviously these two teams work well together because they did magic in this match. Uh, I feel like we always have an FTR match to talk about every year since they've been in AEW that just blows everybody away. And I mean, last year they had multiple of those, but yeah, I absolutely love this match. They the third fall they they spent a lot of time back going back and forth, and FTR just out of nowhere hits the shatter machine with close to under a minute left and secures the victory to retain the championship, which I think kind of shocked a lot of people because of how hot Bullet Club Gold was at this time. I mean, I mean, not right now. They've kind of cooled off, but even after this, they were still pretty hot for a while. And yeah, I think that this match is easily the best tag team match of the year, easily. Um, and I think that I obviously I don't know if FTR will be in the title picture anytime soon, but I do want to see them uh, just go on another like amazing. I always want to see them go on a big run, just because I love FTR so much. They're easily my favorite tag team in the world, and it's so cool how much they love wrestling and how much they just want their matches to be as good as this one. And yeah, I love this match.
Cool. Moving on to number 3. Um, I picked a bit of a fun one because kind of
Mm-hmm.
on the general theme of number 5, where they just kind of had everything. This is the Anarchy in the Arena match at Double or Nothing
Okay.
with the Blackpool Combat Club facing off against the Elite. So we had Danielson, Mox, Claudio, and Yuta at the time facing off against the reunited Elite, Kenny Omega, the Jackson Brothers, and or the Young Bucks, and Hangman Page. Um, I think I just died laughing when this match began. When the
Mm-hmm.
BCC came out, um, Violent Idols played Wild Thing, which is Moxley's regular theme song now.
Yes.
For when they came out, and they played it for what I have to say was at least for another 10 minutes when they just kept repeating the song over and over while the match got started already. Um, I mean, you know, at this point, I mean, Moxley suplexing Omega on the barbed wire. Moxley really doing the throwback to Abdullah the Butcher, taking out the fork and just stabbing
Yeah.
Kenny Omega's head with it. You know, they take the action to the outside. Claudio hit a pile driver on Matt Jackson in the back of a pickup truck. Oh, Moxley put it. I now remember this. thumbtacks were used in a very unique way when Moxley put a handful of thumbtacks in a Mac Jackson's mouth while Claudio hit Nick with an uppercut. And then, yeah, let's see. I'm just reading some of the closing moments here. Omega hit a feed trigger on Castagnoli, hit the one wing angel on Danielson, but Yuta saved the match, broke up the pin. Page attempted the buckshot lariat. Yuta ducked and jabbed Page in the face with a screwdriver. So the screwdriver is becoming a regular thing here.
Mhm.
Oh yes, this is what one of the most memorable. What well, not the most memorable moment, but a signature moment was. Omega sets Yuta up for another one winged angel. You know, Don Callis comes out, appeared with Konosuke Takeshita. They had, they started their little alliance, of course.
Mhm.
So the catcher comes out. He actually turns on the elite here, just like Don Callis betrayed Omega a few weeks before. That's when the screwdriver first appeared, and then that allowed a Takeshita hit the jumping knee strike with Omega, and then Yuta. I mean Wheeler Yuta pinning Omega in this match, I think was a significant moment.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, this match probably like had everybody just and I can understand. This is I guess the current version of what they used to call the Stadium Stampede. I mean they did
Mhm.
bring it back for all in because they were actually in the stadium. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is when you're not shooting a match like this with like pre-recorded segments and like what do you call those um
Vignettes.
no, yeah, vignettes or cinematic versions, right?
Yeah.
It's done live, so you're kind of limited by
Yep.
what you can do. But nevertheless, this was bucket loads of fun. I mean, I just started laughing when they first just start when they kept playing Wild Thing for the next first 10, 15 minutes.
Mhm.
Everybody just did everything to each other. Um, I would say, pretty cool moment for Wheeler Yuta, who has really come out on his own onto. I mean, he's still under the tutelage of, if you will, of his teammates, but he's really coming out on his own. I mean, getting a pin on Kenny Omega. We were talking about like just a few months after this match, Takeshita or Big Take getting wins on Omega himself. So,
Two of them.
yeah. So you got two young guys who really got breakout moments during this year, and definitely Wheeler Yuta got his breakout moment during this
Yeah.
match. And that's just why it's my number three. Other than being just a fun little event during
Yeah.
beginning of summer.
So I would have probably put this match on my list if not for like obviously all the matches I'm about to talk about. But um yeah, I should have. That's the thing. There's so many good matches this year that you just like forget to mention some of them. I would have put that in my honorable mentions, honestly, if I had thought about it. But yeah, that was a great match, and just some corrections on my part on my last entry. The match took place on July 15th, and the first match that FTR and the Bullet Club Gold had was Bullet Club Gold winning. It wasn't a draw.
Oh,
Um, yeah. So I just I guess I think I just the other match just left my mind because the second one was so good, and the fact that they were like a week apart. So anyway, my number three, and again, I think I probably would have put this match higher if not for the other matches that I'm going to talk about later. This match from early in the year, I think, and again, when you do these lists, I think people kind of like sometimes forget, unless it's like a absolute banger. People sometimes forget that these matches happened in March or February, and they just talk about the matches that recently happened. Um, but my number three is from Revolution, MJF versus Brian Danielson in the Iron Man match. Um, this match is just it's hard to explain. Like, obviously Brian Danielson is considers himself an Iron Man in wrestling, and whenever he gets the chance to prove it, he does every single time. Um, and the story going into this match was, can MJF hang with him? Uh, because everybody knows that Brian Danielson can go 60 minutes. Everybody knows that Brian Danielson can just go as long as he wants in a match and not get tired, not slow down. And obviously at the time, this was still MJF at the height of his heeldom,
Mm-hmm.
and only being champion at the time for what, like 3 or 4 months, and still kind of new to him being at the top of the mountain. And he needed a match like this to solidify his reign at the time. Um, he needed somebody like Danielson to test him, because I think going in, everybody expected that MJF would retain, but I think we all wanted to see how MJF would react to this kind of match, and how MJF would take to being in the ring with somebody like Brian Danielson for that long. And it was just uh it was a lot of fun. It was one of those things, and I think people sour on the Iron Man match because of the fact that it is a set, like it has to be an hour every time, or it has to be a half hour. So you have to like fit all this in the time limit and make it make sense. Um, and they did that. MJF obviously using a lot of his heel tactics at the time, whether it's low blows, you're using the diamond ring, and Danielson is just trying to win the only way he knows how, being the best wrestler. He's not trying to cheat. He's not trying to take shortcuts, and he would tell you that would probably make him think less of you. But um, yeah, I think that this match, again, probably would have been a lot higher. I mean, it's number 3, but I think it would have been higher for me if not for some of Danielson's other matches.
Yeah.
And
Funny you brought this up as your number 3. I ranked this a little bit higher, but we'll get into that later.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But you since you
absolutely love
yeah
this match.
yeah
Absolutely love this match. Absolutely love both guys. Um, as evident by our wrestlers list last week. Uh, but yeah, that's my number 3.
cool. Okay. Yeah, like I'll talk about it later, but number 2, move on to number 2. I picked after taking a look at, because you kept talking about this. Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega at Wrestle Kingdom 17,
Mm-hmm.
beginning of this year. Will Ospreay was defending what was called the IWGP United States Championship at the time.
Yeah.
Um, what I mentioned before with Will being able to adopt his style to his opponent. With Kenny Omega, unlike with a guy like Josh Alexander, Kenny Omega can at that time could obviously move on almost at the same rate as Will, so they were definitely almost matching blow for blow in this one. I'm just maybe it's just the way New Japan style is, but just taking a look at even just the brief highlights, it was like just back and forth, and Will just flipping around. He's like doing somersaults in midair, and it was just crazy. The one, one pretty cool spot was I don't know how it happened, but I guess somebody crashed through a table, and those New Japan tables are those narrower ones that are much harder and are not like gimmicked.
Yeah.
And at one point, one of the tables spouted a giant hole the size of a
Yep.
face, and then
Yep.
Kenny Omega decided to replicate the Jack Nicholson "Here's Johnny" scene from The Shining,
Yeah.
which was like the one spot I saw that was pretty cool. Um,
Got a good pop.
but yeah, it was like these guys were moving like water, right? And it was almost like almost thinking how the way Bruce Lee used to move and when he shot some of his movies back in the day, and it was just like, wow, I was like, this was amazing. And like subsequently, I checked out. I mean, I remember going to Forbidden Door later in the year. Um, Probably not as good because at that match had the involvement of a screwdriver from Don Callis, but the fucking screwdriver. I know. Yeah, I bought the screwdriver earlier, but that was in the context of an absolutely no DQ barn burner. But in this case, it was a little more tainted. But nevertheless, I would say number two is this Will Ospreay Kenny Omega classic. Really put the standard as the way New Japan does their matches with some of the best talent they have in their roster, or formerly of their roster. So that's my number two.
And yeah, I will say what I have to say about that match a little
Okay.
later.
Okay.
A lot of teasers on this show, but so my number two is it's Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. As mentioned earlier by you. Um, yeah, I mean pretty much everything that you said about this match. Two guys who are considered two of the best technical wrestlers ever, or at least of the last of this century. Um, Going at it for the first time in. I mean, they had matches early in their careers, right? But they were not at the level, or at least Zack Sabre Jr. wasn't at the level that he is now at the time of their earlier matches. Um, this match was two guys at the height of their ability. Two guys that I don't think out of anybody going today can be matched on a technical level. These are the two. And you have them going at it in this match that arguably would, in my opinion, should have been the main event if not for what happened at the end of the show that this was on. Um, because I think this match could main event any show. Um, and the fact that they just went out there and had probably the best technical match in the last decade, and it was flawless. There was nothing about this match that I could say. I can't say anything negative about this match because of how good they they just they just get it. Both of them just get wrestling, get technical wrestling. And yeah, the story going in is who's going to be the best technical wrestler. And we're going to prove it. And Sabre Jr. being upset that he didn't lose on a technical level, he lost because he got knocked out. And that just screams rematch. And obviously, we're not getting that match right away. I think we're going to get that down the line because we're getting the Danielson Okada rematch at Wrestle Kingdom. Um, but yeah, I think we will have a rematch between these two at some point. I think that if anybody who hasn't seen this match and is a fan of Bret Hart or is a fan of Kurt Angle or any of the best technical wrestlers that you could think of should see this match. It's a masterclass, this match. And I love it. I love it so much. Um it's my bread and butter, this match. It's the type of wrestling that I love the most. It's the type of wrestling that I love to watch, and it, it it's the best. It, and again, it would be number one, but obviously there is a clear number one in my eyes.
Well, in your eyes, but apparently
Yes.
not in mine. And let's move on to our
Yes.
picks for number one. Number one already extensively talked about. I picked MJF versus Brian Danielson. Frankly, my recollection of this match was just like, yeah, like you said, Danielson was just throwing everything at Max, and he was coming back from war, and it was finally me seeing, well, okay, he's not just talking all the time; he's actually backing up what he's all
Hmm.
the stuff that he's saying. And you could say that this was the beginning of this stellar year for MJF, like moving on from that Iron Man match to having spectacular defenses in the Four Pillars four way against Adam Cole at All In, um, at against Jay White at Full Gear, although it, that could have gone better. And what
Yeah.
obviously pending what I think is a cap off a crazy 2023 for MJF at World
Hmm.
coming up. Um, I mean, the match at even I think but at one point they had a fire extinguisher. I don't think we mentioned that before, so I just
I didn't even mention that. No.
yeah. But
Yeah.
what I mean, the other significant storyline thing for me was that after this match, it was like Danielson went away for a couple of weeks or months, and then suddenly he reappeared alongside Blackpool Combat Club, which he had been kind of distanced
And
from
and this was after Regal had left.
after Regal left. He comes back, basically turns heel along with the rest of BCC. And I have to say, I kind of really like heel Brian Danielson. He's kind of
Yes.
been doing a little bits of it here and there.
I think he's just a tweener forever.
Yeah, he petered off a bit when he was facing Okada because everybody had got the big
And
pop
Ricky Starks.
and Ricky
And Ricky.
Starks. I mean, yeah, we didn't mention
Oh yeah, we
the Ricky
another honorable
all
mention
call
for you.
match. Yeah,
The strap match between
it was a strap match. It was a strap match,
yes.
right?
I I I think that match just completely slipped my mind because of how good his other matches are, but
Right.
this year. But yeah, the strap match, just to comment on that, go watch that match. It's
Yeah.
easily the best strap match ever.
Yes. Yeah, fun side note. And now because we've already talked about my number one in your very detailed explanation as your number three, what is your number one match of 2023, Mike?
Well, I think you could guess. It's it's Will
Talk- yeah.
it's Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega at Wrestle Kingdom. Uh I mean, I have said extensively numerous times throughout the year, this is my number one match of the year, and it has not changed since January 4th. Since January 4th, nothing has matched this match. Um, I mean, I even toyed with the idea of just making it a tie for both Osprey and Omega matches because they both are just amazing. Um, I mean, but yeah, this match was the standard of wrestling throughout the year. And it, to me, and I think a lot of other people who watched this match when it happened were like, nobody is going to match this. Nobody. And I think you could ask any diehard New Japan fan, any diehard AEW fan, any diehard just fan of wrestling who saw this match, that this match has been the standard for the entire year, and it never wasn't. Um, just absolute uh, great storytelling going into this match of Will Ospreay putting New Japan on his back because he felt like he needed to, because Kenny Omega created a standard in wrestling that put this pressure on Will Ospreay, and Will Ospreay using that to improve over time, and prove that he was a main eventer, prove that he deserved to be world champion, and Kenny Omega leaving and going to AEW, and Will Ospreay resenting him for it. Will Ospreay telling Kenny Omega that you abandoned New Japan, and you abandoned the place that made you, and I stayed. I made something of myself. I carried this place. And just going into that match and all of that, just lying over it, uh, uh, being over it, and the just the build, it builds very slowly, but once it gets to like the crescendo of like the entire finish, and yeah, I can't say enough about how much this match has molded my year as a wrestling fan, because I knew that nothing would match it, and nothing did, in my opinion. I I mean, I said it when this match happened. That is the best match that I've seen in a very long time. I mean, I can't even. So when you make these lists, right? I think people have multiple lists. You have your all-time favorites as far as like being just a WWE fan, your all-time favorites of just being like a wrestling fan, and those lists kind of like intermingle, right? Because everybody pretty much grew up being a WWE fan, right? So you think that because WWE has always been the standard, that when matches like this happened and you compare it, there's like no arguing in my opinion. Like, this is better than anything I've ever seen. And I I mean, I guess you could argue the Omega Okada matches. I guess you could argue some of the FTR matches in the last couple of years. But I can't think of a WWE match in general that would even come close to the standard that this match set. And because for years, my favorite match of all time was Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. Only because that was my two all-time favorites at the time, going at it in a match that, for somebody like me who just grew up as a WWE fan and later found other wrestling and later realized how good other wrestling was and realized how limited WWE is, there are so many matches that blow that match out of the water. And this is one of them for me. Because and it goes back to like what I said. It's come down to now having a all-time WWE list and an all-time just wrestling list, because those are different and they can't intermingle.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I mean, WWE is becoming sort of a category of its own. Not
Yes.
necessarily of better wrestling. It's just that they have just different people they're pushing that does do different things. So, I mean, they are a sports entertainment company now. So, It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely a different genre. We have to look at it with a different lens, though. Yeah, so there's our top five matches. Pretty short list considering we both picked like similar ones that
Well,
were already plugged in. So
I mean, come on.
a few
I mean,
caught up.
I mean, and I think obviously, like people that see this, we don't like. Last year, the thing was that there was no New Japan matches because New Japan was kind of at a lull,
Mm,
and the thing has been the past 2 years that there aren't any women's matches
yeah,
on
yeah,
the actual lists. But and that's nothing against women's wrestling as a whole. I think that if there was a match that was undeniable, then I think we would talk about it, right? Um, and I mean, like the Rhea Charlotte match, people have put on their lists, right, from WrestleMania because it was the defining moment for Rhea. It was easily the best match that those two have had ever together. Um, but yeah, I would have loved to have a women's match on my list, but comparing the best women's matches of the year to what we talked about is kind of hard. And obviously, like, I mean, we're not going to do it here, but maybe in the future, we'll just make women's matches a separate list, right?
yeah,
Because um, we don't want to undermine women's wrestling in any way, because women's wrestling is better than it's ever been, right? Um, I think it's just hard to compare those to the matches that we have talked about. So I don't want anybody to think less of us and our opinions on women's wrestling because women's wrestling is going well.
yeah. I
It's
mean,
better than ever.
yeah, and deserves way much more attention than I think these days in general fans are giving it. I mean, we had a bit of a spike during past few years ago when they did a whole pay-per-view of women's matches. That's kind of
Yep.
not having that lately, but you know, hopefully things will look up in 2024. Sorry, I'm in the middle of like there's this really hilarious tweet. Orange Cassidy is at this company called Mystery Wrestling, and he's facing this guy named Psycho Mike, and it's like apparently 2 minutes of just comedy spots. I'm just dying here. Sorry about that. That
Okay.
was a random interruption, but
No, that's fine. But yes, I don't know when. Maybe next year we'll add just top five women's matches or top five women's
yeah, we'll
wrestlers.
look into that. Um, and then, well, we are coming to the closing of the episode of this year. I mean, World's
Yes.
End, AEW World's End is coming Saturday, September
Yeah.
30th. You
So
know,
we'll try to fit it in maybe next weekend if we can.
yeah,
Um,
because
obviously,
I mean, the rest of the card came together pretty quickly within the Dynamite
yes.
from last night. So, um, I mean, I'm still hoping,
It's a
yeah,
pretty solid card, all things
solid. It's
considered.
solid. You know, I think we're all expecting the main event ending. I mean, we have ideas of what it's gonna be like. So,
Yes.
um,
Um, without like, I mean, we're not going to do like predictions or anything, but I think one thing that definitely needs to happen is that this Devil storyline needs to
yeah, I mean, you literally
reach.
called this pay per view World's End. So if this carries over into 2024 and we still don't know who Devil
Yeah,
Guy is, it's not gonna make any sense. And it's just gonna,
and I mean, you got two of them already. Two of them are tag champs, and as of
yes,
right
the
now,
Devil's mystery mask people. We don't even know if they held the titles before because we don't know who they are.
no, we have no idea who they are. They just put up a graphic that says
Yeah,
"Devil's Masked Men are your new
yeah,
tag team champions."
I was asking
So,
I was asking the Twitter account, the WWE vacant guy. Hey, you know these guys? They kind of look like you a bit.
yeah.
Anyway,
So we'll see how everything goes, but there it is a pretty solid card, and I'm pretty sure that we could. probably fit in a review of the show next as our first show of the year. Um, as long as everybody is able to.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. With that, I guess we can sign off. I guess to end 2023, Mike, do you have like one thing you're hoping will happen in the wrestling world in 2024?
Um, I don't think I have like one thing in particular. Like,
Or
there,
general?
yeah, I feel like there's a lot going on. I mean, like, and we haven't really discussed this really at all, but like WWE is working with All Japan. Like,
That was interesting. I saw that and I was like,
right?
oh, they're gonna bring a guy from NXT over there. I wonder who it is. And it's like, oh, Charlie Dempsey. And like, which really makes the most sense because he's William Regal's son. William Regal has
Yeah.
relationships in Japan.
Yep. Obviously, I would like to see more integration between AEW and New Japan, AEW and CMLL if that's possible, AEW and AAA. And I mean, I think I've heard people say this before, but I would actually like to see luchadors in storylines and and not just showcase matches. Um, you have all these very talented guys on the roster in AEW, especially, and they kind of just show up when you want them to do flippy stuff, and that's it.
Yeah, surprisingly, what I noticed is the most luchador screen time that was given was on NXT, as Dragon Lee and Joaquin Wild and Cruz del Toro from LWO are going to have a six-man match against the guys now called the Catch Point Crew, which is Drew Gulak's faction. They're obviously a group really focused on mat wrestling, like technical wrestling. So it's almost like the mat guys versus the high flyers. So in terms of like what you just mentioned, luchadors having more of a storyline thing going on. It's actually an NXT because the story is, you know, it's like luchadors, they're going to want to showcase what they can do against these guys who just talk down on them and saying that you need to keep things on the ground, which really is funny because I remember when Drew Gulak was doing his whole PowerPoint presentation gimmick,
The no fly zone.
no fly zone. He's brought that back, but in a more serious
Yes.
tone.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, I would like to see more of that, more of those guys. I'd like to see Commander in a storyline. I'd even like to see Penta in a storyline. He hasn't really done much in AEW recently. I mean, he just had that great trios match where he teamed with Vikingo and Commander against Top Flight and Action Andretti. I don't know why they're still called Top Flight and Action Andretti. Just put him in Top Flight. Just call them Top Flight as a trio. But
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I think Action Andretti's character may start to kind of expand in 2024, considering the man knows how to drink a bottle of water in 0.5 seconds. So,
Oh, like he was doing the Kenny Omega bit from Being the Elite. The
I stopped
yeah,
watching that show, but thanks for bringing
uh,
it up.
yes, but yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm very intrigued with what's going on with Mercedes Monet. I want to know what's going on with her. Is she gonna be in AEW? Is she gonna go back to New Japan / Stardom? Is she gonna be in the Royal Rumble? Nobody really knows because she is very quiet. She said that after her injury that she was going to take the rest of the year off, even though I'm pretty sure she's healed up and ready to go. I mean, last year she made her first outside appearance at Wrestle Kingdom, and yeah, I mean, she is probably the most intriguing free agent as far as like what's going to happen. What is she gonna do?
Yeah,
Uh, because Vince is not there anymore. She's never been in a WWE without Vince. You know,
that's true.
or
The main reason for her leaving way back a year plus a year or so ago has gone. So
yeah,
uh, now
and
that
her
the has changed, right? So
and one of her best friends in wrestling, Bailey, is staying there.
yep, You have more reason
Um,
to go back than you do now. Kind of striking out on your own. Not that I'm saying she wouldn't be able to like build
no,
a
of
brand, but
course.
saying, you know, when you comes
Yeah.
you know, it comes to like how you're gonna make your money, people go back to what they know, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we mentioned it last week when we talked about free agency, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people's contracts are coming up this year, whether it's out in January, whether it's towards the middle of the year. But like, you got people like Deanna, who's now a free agent as of January 1st, I think, and she could go anywhere because she has proven how good she is, and she has proven that WWE wasted her when she was there last time. Um, and I think at this point she is undeniable. She's one of the best women's wrestlers in the world. So she literally has all the options to go anywhere. She could go to AEW if she wants. She could stay in Impact if she wants, but she's not going to get the kind of money I think that she would want if she stays in Impact. Um, she could go back to WWE and hopefully actually be used to the level that she deserves to be used. Um, but yeah, is Drew McIntyre going to leave? He's had contract disputes for months now, and I believe his contract is up either January or end of January.
Yeah, that's
Um,
intriguing. When we talk about free agency, you mentioned the Dianas, and like we've got a slew of free agents that just passed their 90-day
yeah,
non compete, so they're gonna make a lot of 2024 appearances wherever. But there's a big free coming up for WWE: Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, and Becky Lynch.
yep.
Um, if WWE can't keep at least one of them, and they lose all three, that would be insane. And I don't know what's gonna happen after that.
So I think as long as Becky, I think Seth will probably do whatever Becky does.
Hmm.
As far as, I mean, because obviously, I mean, we don't know. Again, obviously, we don't know these people personally. We don't know what they. Well, I mean, as of right now, I'm pretty sure that they have their baby on the road with them, right?
Hmm.
So I would assume that they have to be at the same company to make that work, right?
Yeah.
Um, Again, I don't want to assume people's personal things, but yeah, it would be very intriguing, especially if Becky left, because Becky is the glue of that division. Becky is the reason that division is as hot as it is, and as hot as it has been in the last 5 years. I don't think women's wrestling is taken as seriously, if not for the emergence of the man Becky Lynch and all of the things that surrounded that. She's easily the most popular women's wrestler possibly ever. Possibly ever. And if she leaves WWE, that is a huge blow. Um, because wherever she does go, and obviously I think if she left, it would be to go to AEW, right? The only other big company in America. Um, but imagine the shot in the arm that the AEW women's division would get if that happened. It would have to be taken seriously at that point. And not to say that it hasn't been recently. I think things are going upward in AEW's women's division as far as things recently. But if that happened, it would be on a whole nother level. Um, but yeah, and I mean, I want to say that maybe we'll. I want to see what's going to happen with Roman, obviously, but if he doesn't lose the title at Mania, what's the point? right? What's the point? He needs to lose the title at this Mania. He
Yeah.
needs to. It's the only way to move forward. It's the only way.
Because at this point, the only two remaining Hall of Famers that you want to have Roman keep the title just to surpass the length of their reigns is Hulk Hogan and Bruno Sammartino. I've been thinking about this on and off, and I'm thinking I can't fathom a moment when you want to have Roman Reigns, for all his accomplishments, surpass the title reign of one of the most iconic pop culture personalities in wrestling that transcended that and basically made wrestling mainstream, like Hulk Hogan, despite Hulk
See,
Hogan's many
the
flaws. Right?
problem the
First,
problem with that, right? Because if he surpassed Hulk Hogan, he would move into third all time
yeah,
and the third longest reign ever. The problem with that is that he would have to hold the belt until September to make that work,
right,
right?
right.
And I'm sorry, but I just can't. I love Roman Reigns as a performer, and everything that he has done in the last couple of years has been great. But 2023 in particular was the proof that I needed that this reign needs to end, because the man only had 5 matches the entire year,
Right.
and
You can credibly argue Orange Cassidy had a better title reign in less than a year because all the title defenses, right?
right, and I understand that the bloodline thing is something that you've been building for years. I get all of that. But at this point, if that is the thing that you're building your company around, I don't think that a title needs to be involved anymore. Um cuz the match with The Rock is not happening. It's just not. It's done. It's over. Nobody wants to see that match anymore. It should have happened last year and it didn't. So the fact that this year in particular was all I needed to solidify that, because I mean we've talked about it in the past. I haven't watched SmackDown in 2 months because I have no reason to. They have not given me a reason to watch SmackDown because you have a part-time world champion who's been champion for 3.5 years and he only shows up 3 times a year, and then you have a part-time United States champion
Hmm.
who only shows up 6 times a year. What is there to watch on SmackDown? Nothing. There's nothing to fight for. So obviously I would love to watch SmackDown, but I would love for them to also give me a reason to.
So, kind of a random interruption. Uh, Another match has been added to World's End. It's an all-star 8-man tag match involving everybody else from the Continental Classic. So Claudio Danielson, Mark Briscoe, and Daniel Garcia will team against Brody King, Jay White, Jay Lethal, and Roosh. So it's Team Brian's versus Team Daniels versus Team Jay's. I'm like,
Uh,
this is sort of randomly thrown together. And
uh,
here's another thing. Unlike Orange Cassidy is randomly challenging people and putting his title on the line, I'm surprised he is not defending his international title. And there's a fellow that's going around saying he's doing a world tour in 2024. Um, you know, famous guy from Chicago in this line of genre, Mustafa Ali, and
mm-hmm.
doing a world tour. That world tour would look pretty good with an international championship that he's lugging around. So anyway,
uh, on
yeah,
another note, before we get out of here, just I just had this thought the other day, and I think I actually tweeted it. I wish Claudio had a Wrestle Kingdom match.
against
Moxley
who?
had I mean, anybody really, but I mean, you got Moxley in a title match, and
Yeah,
you have the Okada Danielson rematch.
interesting.
I think it would just be cool for Claudio if he had a Wrestle Kingdom match, and he doesn't.
Doesn't have
I
to be a
mean,
doesn't have to be a singles match too. If you want to drag Yuta along and then maybe like
yeah,
see see if Shota Umino wants to do a 6-man, maybe you know.
yeah. I mean, they could have. They Umino has a match already, but yeah. I mean, they're gonna do their pre-show Rumble thing,
Mm,
so maybe he'll be in that, but that doesn't matter. It never matters. So, but yeah, I just think it would have been cool if Claudio had like a Wrestle Kingdom match. But that's besides the point. But yeah, Wrestle Kingdom is, as always, on January 4th. Pretty stacked card, nonetheless. Got the main event of Naito
hmm
versus Sonata. The the build of Sonata being the champion and Naito winning the G1 to the eventual uh, showdown between the two after Sonata left LIJ and joined Just Four Guys to change the name to Just Five Guys.
Yes,
Um,
they were joined by a sixth guy, the returning Yuya Uemura, now known as Heatstorm. But then they lost a guy to the House of Torture, as I understand it.
yeah, Kanemaru.
Yeah, so it's back to five guys
Um,
again.
and randomly, Ren Narita is now part of House of Torture, which is weird. um, yeah. But yeah, you have that match. You have Okada versus Danielson 2. You have Moxley versus Finley versus Osprey. Um, you have, I believe, hold on. Let me just pull up the actual card because it's pretty stacked nonetheless. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it as a whole. But yeah, you have the matches I mentioned. You also have Takahashi against El Desperado. Uh, then you have the winner take all tag title match. Bishamon versus Gorillas of Destiny members Hikuleo and El Phantasmo. Um, you got the rubber match between Shingo Takagi and Tamatanga. Then you have Shota Umino teaming with Kaito Kiyomiya from Noah to take on House of Torture members Evil and Ren Narita.
Mm.
Um, Yota Tsuji versus Uemura. That should be good. Then you have Zack Sabre Jr. defending the World Television Championship against the new president of New Japan, Hiroshi Tanahashi. And
has Zach done a shit a promo? Like, I don't know what you call his promos. His promos are actually pretty good on the new
yeah,
president. Hey,
I haven't seen one, so I would have to see if that's the case. But and the
he
other,
probably started with President Bollocks. What's
yeah,
happening, mate?
yeah, um, and the other main card match is a rematch between Bullet Club War Dogs, Clark Connors, and Drilla Maloney to take on the Catch 22 team or Catch 22 team of TJP and Francesco Akira.
Hmm, okay.
So, yeah, it's a pretty stacked card nonetheless. And I always look forward to Wrestle Kingdom because, I mean, I am hoping that Okada Danielson doesn't result in somebody breaking a bone this time.
Yeah, despite what's being said. Anyway,
So
thank
yeah,
you everyone for listening to us this past year. We truly appreciate it. You can find us on all social media platforms at SLTD Wrestling. You can go to our link tree. So that's linktree.com/ going over big time.
It's
To
it's
Sorry,
Linktree
link tree. Did I say it wrong?
Linktree slash
Link
going
tree.
over big time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, to find all the links to how to find me, how to find Mike, how to find SLTD Wrestling, this wonderful platform that's allowed us to host this podcast for the past year or
Yes.
two.
Our YouTube with the video
Hmm.
episodes, all of our social medias of you, me, Tanner, who is here on occasion, who is been busy, but
Tanner shall be back at some point.
yes, Tanner will be back, and like you said, go to our linktree slash going over big time podcast, and like us on Facebook. Everything is on there to how to watch, how to listen, how to support us. So, yeah,
Cool. Okay, and with that, thank you very much, everyone, for listening to us in 2023. We will see you again in the new year. Have a good evening.